Hi, everyone. On to Chapter 7, which is all about wage and salary issues. Again, very important chapter because, obviously, whenever we're at a bargaining table, wages and salary issues are, if they're not the most important, they're one of the top two or three most important issues as far as negotiation. Because obviously, people work to get paid. So obviously, wage issues are one of the most talked over issues, if not the most talked over issue in a bargaining session. So, couple things I want you to know for Chapter 7. If you go to pages 251 and 252, your book talks about, union wage objectives. They basically list 8 things that unions have as objectives when they're negotiating with wages. And again, you don't need to memorize all 8 things, but those 8 things will kind of give you a general sense of what unions are looking as far as what their structure is, what their strategy is, and what they want to accomplish whenever they're looking at about wages. Obviously, with most companies, or on the other side, obviously, they want to get as good a deal for themselves as possible, when they're negotiating. But again, I think it's important for you to understand kind of what are the general objectives in negotiating as it revolves around wages. And again, pages 251 and 252 of your book really discuss that. So. Your Chapter 7 also talks about things like overtime. As relates to the Fair Labor Standards Act, in which we talked about way early in the semester. But again, as far as unions are big on making sure that overtime is paid if employees work more than 40 hours. Again, it's a federal law, so it's easy to follow. But again, there's some instances where they're about being exempt versus non-exempt. And again, if you've taken other HR classes or even other general business classes, you probably understand the issue about if you're exempt, you're exempted from overtime. If you're non-exempt, then if you work more than 40 hours in a given work week, you're owed time and a half for any hours worked over 40. So again, that all comes out of the Fair Labor Standards Act. So make sure you kind of refamiliarize yourself with those. Again, I'm not going to necessarily test you over, exempt, non-exempt, but again, I think it's good to know as it relates to union wage negotiations. So. Your book talks about a lot of different ways employees are paid. It talks about standard rates, which is, just a straight standard wage for every hour you work to get this amount. Piece rates, where you get paid. So if you produce widgets, so for every widget that you produce, you get paid $5 or $10, whatever the number is for everyone that you produce. So again, as you can imagine, piece rates probably more in more manufacturing type environments, but again, it's still given as a way to pay employees. There's ways you can call what we call deferred wages, where it's a way to kind of do long-term planning, where maybe you get paid less now, but the more you do, that will be made up to you in a future wage negotiation agreement. So make sure you know kind of what standard rates are, piece rates are, and deferred wages are. And then it also talks about what we call cost of living adjustments, or COLA, C-O-L-A. And again, a lot of union contracts ask for these because as we're in a period of high inflation right now here in our country. So what a COLA does is as things become more expensive and prices go up, that union members in their contracts will get salary increases to keep up with the cost of living. That's why it's called a cost of living adjustment. And again, unions are really big on pushing for those. So make sure you understand what kind of what COLAs are. And finally, the last thing about Chapter 7 I want you to know is what we call a two-tier wage system. So, and again, unions, push for this quite a bit, where you pay new workers less than current employees. So basically, if let's say you're a plumber, you come in at a lower rate, as a plumber 1, and as you get more and more seniority and experience, your rate goes up. So, just because again, unions are big on seniority, and we talk about seniority in a later chapter, but make sure you understand the idea behind a two-tier wage system, because again, unions really push for it, because they believe it's more fair and rewards employees who stay there longer. So those, again, a lot in Chapter 7, but those are kind of the main parts I want you to take away is when we start talking about wages and salary issues. So, okay, thanks everyone.